Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vakpranashchakshushrotramatho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Mama Brahma Nirakarot Anirakaranamastva Nirakaranam me astu Tadatmani Nirateya Upanishatsu Dharmaste Mayi Santu Te Mayi Santu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The whole discussion, as we are seeing, about the three elements is what? Is to show that everything has come from Sat. Sat alone is the cause of everything. And Sat, Tad Aikshata. Tat Sat Aikshata we saw. Aikshata means what? Saw. How can Sat see? Sat can see because Sat is sentient. Sentient Sat can see. See means visualize. And what did it visualize? It visualized the previous cycle of creation and then brought forth Tejaha. Tejaha means what? Fire. That we know. Tejaha it brought forth. Bringing forth this Tejaha, then the Shruti says, Saha Tejaha Aikshata. Now the Tejaha, the fire saw. Now how did the fire see? The Sat in the form of the fire saw. That is how we have to understand. Sat is the one who is seeing, and the Sat is the one that is a sentient being, a conscious being, and Sat in the form of the fire, what did it do? Saw. And they all had the same thought, because they were all the same entity. What was the thought? Bahusyam. May we become many, may I become many. Prajayeya. Like this. And so, what did fire create? Water. And we won't forget it ever, because whenever one is angry, anguished, sad, what happens? Tears come or sweat comes when there is anxiety, stress, etc. So this is a direct way to see how fire and water are connected. And then going further, next one. Taha apaha aikshanta bahvyaha syama prajayeyam ha iti taha annam asrijanta tasmad yatra kva cha varshati tadeva bhuyishtam annam bhavati adbhyah eva tad adhi annam anna adyam jayate. Yeah. So taha apaha aikshanta. Now the waters thought. Taha apaha, those waters thought. Water is always plural. You can't have one water. It doesn't make sense. So the waters thought. What did they think? Same thing. They are not thinking different thing. The waters did not think, let's go have ice cream. Okay? The waters also had the same thought. What is that? Let us become many. Let us populate ourselves. Let us clone ourselves. And let us be in many, many names, many, many forms. This is what the waters also thought. Waters thought means what? The Sat in the waters thought. The Sat in the form of the waters thought. And here when we talk of fire, water, earth, etc., we are not talking of the gross elements. We are talking of subtle elements. The gross elements are yet to come. We are talking of subtle elements. And so what happened here is that the subtle waters, the subtle water thought, let me become gross, let me become many. And then what did it create? Annam asrijanta. Annam here does not mean food. Upalakshana for earth, Prithivi. So what did they create? They created the earth. And then the Shruti says, between water and annam means that which comes of the earth is called annam. Between water and annam, what is there? A great connection is there. When there is plentiful water, there is always plentiful food. Vrihi avadi. You see how nicely it is connected, everything to Adhibhautika here and Adhyatmika in the previous one. Here Adhibhautika connection is given that wherever there is water, Kva means wherever, and Kva yatra. Yatra means, Kva means whenever, yatra means wherever. So wherever, whenever there is water, there is bhuyishtam annam. Plentitude in the form of food. So therefore, in countries with lot of rain, there is easy to grow food. And so that connection is made here. This is a adhibhautika connection based on the surroundings. And the previous one, that whenever there is shoka or bhaya, what happens? Water in some form is produced. Where? In the body. And so what kind of a connection is? Adhyatmika connection. Now here, adhibhautika connection. And then, so wherever there is, so therefore, tat, so adhijayante. So one thing here, in both those things they were there, I forgot to mention it. Adbhyah eva tad adhyat annam jayante. Adyam annam jayante. Adhya annad jayante. So therefore, adhya adhijayante. So adhi annad jayante. The adhi is a prefix to jayante, adhijayante. They have a Vedic license where the prefix can be separated from the word and put somewhere else. If you do that in a Sanskrit exam, what will you get? 0, big 0. But Vedas can do it. Why? Because they have what is called Vedic license, like poetic license. It is called Chandasam. Vedic license being there, they can do it. They can say, they can take the adhi from jayante and put it between apaha. Adhyapo jayante. No, apaha adhijayante. And then, so bhuyishtam annam bhavati adbhyah eva tad adyam means that which is to be eaten, that annam jayante. Why is it called adyam? Because previously the word annam was used for what? Earth. So now here we are not talking of earth. What are we talking about? Food from the earth. And so therefore, the food from that water, food for eating, that which is worthy of being eaten, adyam, to be eaten, comes. And so Adi Shankara says very beautifully, Prithvi Lakshanam Parthivam hi Annam. So Annam is Prithvi Lakshanam. That which is called Prithvi is called Annam because where does the Annam come from? Where does the food come from? Earth. Even if you say food comes from animals, where do the animals roam? Not in the sky. Where do they roam? On earth. So there's only two choices. Either you eat the herbs and the, what is that called? The food, grains, herbs, etc., leaves, herbs, grains, you eat directly, or you feed the animal and then eat the animals. Food is from the earth. That is what is repeatedly pointed out in all the Upanishads. And so, what happens? So then, wherever there is vrishti, wherever there is water, then bhuishtam annam bhavati. Lots of food is there. And so therefore, so now this whole thing is complete, the setup is complete. Kind of, because we are still talking of subtle elements, and from the subtle elements alone what comes? Gross elements come. Through a particular and a very interesting and to us peculiar, if one is not understanding it, one is not familiar with that thinking, a peculiar mechanism. What is this mechanism? In the Tattva Bodha, it is called Panchikaranam. Panchikaranam is the mechanism by which the subtle elements are grossified. The subtle elements cannot even be objectified. So what is the air that we see here, that we sense when we move our hands? What is this air? Gross air. And what does this contain? The gross air, you may say, contains nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen. That is scientifically. But shastrically speaking, what does the gross air contains? The gross air contains half of the subtle air element and 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4 of the other four elements. Do we need to name the other four elements? I think yes, because there was a little gap. Okay. What are the four elements? Other than air, you have air is already occupying half. You make a circle, half is air, so you don't add air. Then you add the other four. What are they? Space, water, fire, earth. 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. So 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4 makes half. The other half, air. Predominantly air, and then 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, what? All the other elements. Then that becomes gross air, and then we can do this with each and every element. We won't, don't worry, but conceptually we can do this. Similarly, half water and 1/4, 1/4 all the other four elements, half fire, 1/4, 1/4 other elements, half earth, 1/4, 1/4 other elements, gives rise to each and every gross element. But here, how many elements are discussed? 3. Not Not Panchikaranam, because if you said 3 elements and we are going to do Panchikaranam, where did you get the other 2? The question will come. So therefore, the Upanishad ingeniously says, no bother at all. What will we do? Trivrit Karanam we will do. What is this Trivrit Karanam? Same as Panchikaranam, but with 2 elements less. So instead of dividing into 5 and taking half and then 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, what do? Divide each element into how many? Say 3, come on. 3. So 1/3 air and then the other 2, third is what? Fire and water. So air is not there. So 1/3 fire and then what else is there? The other water and earth. Then you have, what do you have when you put this combination? Gross fire. Then you do the same thing for the water. 1/3 water and other third, what do you put? Fire and earth. Then what do you get? Gross water. And then you can do 1/3 earth. And the other third, what do you put? Fire and water. So then you get.
But they're all the same.
What do you mean they're all the same?
1/3, 1/3, 1/3. How do we distinguish what's earth and what's fire? They're all the same.
2/3 and 1/3. Yeah. 2/3 and then 1/3, 1/3. Yeah. So 2/3 of this and 1/3, 1/3 you put, and then what do you get? You get gross earth, gross fire, and then gross water. So this Trivrit Karanam and Panchikaranam are basically one and the same. Here we have only 3 elements to work with, and so it is called Trivrit Karanam. And so then what happens? 2/3 and then 1/6, 1/6. Yeah, then only it will work. Same kind of proportion as Panchikaranam, similar. You just have to fill it up. Yeah, that's all it is. Whatever it takes to fill it up. Yeah. 2/3 and then 1/6, 1/6. There it was half and 1/4, 1/4. That is easier, okay, for those of us who are weak in decimals. Okay, so, but here we can manage. You just fill it up. Whatever is there, you fill it up, and then you have what is called Trivrit Karanam. Thankfully, it's all mithya, and so we don't have to take it too seriously. You get the idea, you get the drift. Majority is this particular element and the other elements are little bit, and then together they become what is called grossified. Okay? And so this is what is going to be described. And after that grossification only, then you have gross fire, gross water, and then gross earth. So therefore, now here, even before the grossification happens, this Sat starts to get very frisky and active. And then this Sat starts to say a few things. And then we'll see what it says. And then, but before that, the Upanishad points out something. I have cut out a lot of things. So, what does the Upanishad point out in the next section? Tesham khalu esham bhutanam trini eva bijani bhavanti andajam jivajam udbhijam iti. So, now what is the theme? 3. 3 is the theme. So, in keeping with the theme of 3, fire, water and earth, the origins of all the beings are also from 3 sources. What are they? Andajam. Andajam means Andat Jayate. Andajam eva Andajam. You can say Andajam, you can say Andajam, same thing. That which is born of egg. What are they? The snakes, reptiles. Reptilian prabhrittayaha means reptilian type animals. Reptiles, what else? Birds. Reptiles, birds are all born of egg. One source of birth. Fish also, eggs. And then, what? Bacteria? Humans are born of egg? Yeah? Yeah. We are not born of egg. Okay? Yeah. The mother doesn't lay an egg. Okay? The baby comes directly.
That was 2000 years ago science. Now the science is,
Doesn't matter. That's not the point here. We are looking at something else. So, we don't look at that now. Okay? Yeah. Of course, egg is there, but that's not, the egg is not laid. That is the whole idea. Even though we refer to egg, sperm, reproductive material, nobody is born of the egg. Here what we talk of egg is that which is laid by chickens, etc. So the human mother does not sit and lay eggs. Okay? Yeah. The baby comes directly out. That is the difference. So that is called Jivajam. Born directly of what? Jiva. Some other places, the same thing is called Jarayujam. Jarayu is mammals. Born directly of the mother is called Jivajam, the next kind of birth. And then what is the third kind of birth? Udbhijam. Bhumim udbhidya jayanteti udbhijam. Udbhijam. The udbhidya means breaking open the earth they come. What are they? Plants. You put a seed, you cover it, you water it, you forgot about it. Few days later, a sprout comes, breaking open the earth which you had tamped down, patted down, it comes. And so, that is the third form of birth. Adi Shankara says, there is one more form of birth. What is that? Svedajam, born of moisture. In tropical countries and all, we see this. You keep one dabba of rice, go away on holiday. Yes. All these OCI card holders, this is what happens. So you go away and then you come back. After 6 months you come back, and along with the rice dabba, the dabba of rice, are a few friends. Where did they come from? They were not there at all. But that moisture itself creates conditions for their birth. It's not that they are born of moisture, they are also probably born of minuscule eggs, which we don't see. Those eggs, in order to be activated, need some kind of moisture. So we say they are born of moisture. Here, that born of moisture is not there, because this Upanishad is now very happy with this number 3 and keeps on going back to this 333, wants to do matchy everything. And so therefore, this Svedajam should be also included, Adi Shankara says. Svedajam should be included. So all 4 are included in all these 3. And the Bhashya is very nice. So, what does he say here? Here he says, Let me find this place. Tesham Jivavishtanam Khalu Esham. Jivavishtanam means endowed with life. Those that are sentient. Tesham means Jivavishtanam. Those that Tesham means of those that are for those that are sentient. Khalu Esham. Esham here is not fire, etc. That's not what is talked about here, because the fire is yet to undergo what is to be called Trivirit Karanam. That will happen in soon in the next section. But right now it is just in the Sankalpa stage. Tesham Jiva Vishtanam Khalu Esham Pakshyadinam Bhutanam Esham iti Pratyaksha Nirdeshanat Natu Teja Prabhrittinam Tesham Trivit Karanasya Vakshamanatvat Asati Trivrit Karane Pratyaksha Nirdesha Anupapattihi. So Pratyaksha Nirdesha means the direct indication of the word Esham. These should not be wrongly understood as fire, because the fire itself doesn't exist. It's yet to be explained. So therefore, the word Devata and the deities, etc., are for these beings the sources. There is three origins in the form of these three sources, which are all what? Sat alone. Sat alone is the origin for all of them, because through Sat alone everything has come, and these elements are still in a fine Sukshma state. They have not yet been grossified. So Tesham doesn't mean fire, earth and water. What does it mean? Tesham means all these Bhutanams, they have a single origin. And what is that origin? Sat alone in the form of Devata. Sat alone in the form of Ishvara. And so Tesham eva Esham Bhutanam, what is that? The origins are there. Tesham eva Khalu Esham Bhutanam Pakshi Pashu Sthavarādīnām. So for all kinds of things that have come, Pakshi means birds, Pashu, animals, Sthavara, trees, etc. For all of them, Trīni eva na atiriktāni bījāni kāranāni bhavanti. There are no other origins. What are these origins? Iti uchyante andajam andajjatam. Andajam eva andajam. And then what is that? Pakshi sarpadibhyahi. So he gives the example, Pakshi. Pakshi means birds. Sarpa means what? Yes, not rope snake, real snake. Okay? Now, Vedanta people have a problem. And whenever you say snake, what do you think of? Rope. Yeah. Rope does not lay eggs. And so what are we understanding by snake? The empirical snake. And so therefore, he says, like the birds and the snakes, etc. Then he makes a very good point. So birds, snakes, etc., don't say they all have common eggs, and when the egg is laid, you don't know whether it will hatch a bird or hatch a snake. No, it is respectively. It is respectively kramat, because bird egg leads to what? Baby bird. Snake egg leads to it being eaten by the mother snake. Instant population control. The snake will lay 6 eggs, and out of that, 4 of them, swaha. She needs a nutritious meal after giving birth to the eggs. And so, she eats some of the eggs, which is nature's way of not having too many snakes around. And so, like this, each one will come out of its own source. That is the idea. And then what happens? Then what happens is that these are the sources. Then we have cut out many other things. And then we go to the next section. What is that next section? This Sat starts to think. What does it think? Sa iyam devata aikshata hanta aham imaha tisro devataha anena jivena atmana anupravishya namarupe vyakaravani iti. Yeah. So this Sat thought, what did it say? Let me enter into these three deities. Which are the three deities? Fire, water and earth. Let me enter into these three deities first. Let me be the one who becomes many, and let me, as it were, let me enter into these three deities, these three devatas, and then after that, Jivena Atmana. Jivena Atmana means in the form of the Jiva alone, then I will enter this world of various names and forms. Very brilliant. So, Jivena Atmana Vyakaravani. Vyakaravani means Namarupe Vyakaravani. Let me manifest myself into several names and forms. Namarupe, in the form of so many names, so many forms. Let me manifest myself into several names and forms. Namarupe Vyakaravani. Let me create all these names and forms as what? As the individual I. Very beautiful. And what does it mean as the individual I? I told you, the person who is studying the Upanishad gets really bored when the person is not in the picture. Even 2 lines of attention given to other devatas, like fire, water, andaja, udbhija, etc., then the person starts to feel disconnected, dissociated, and wonders, why do I have to study this? So the Upanishad has to repeatedly bring back the Jiva. Because if the Jiva is out of the picture, Vedanta becomes redundant. Vedanta becomes unnecessary. So for this attention hog in the form of the Jiva, this Jiva has to be up front and center. So already 3-4 lines were wasted. Talking about what? All these fire, water, earth and devatas. The Jiva is sitting there thinking, who cares? What about me? Where am I in all this? Don't worry, you are the centerpiece. Without you, nothing can happen. Who is this Jiva? The conscious being. What is the conscious being? Sat. This Sat in the form of the conscious being, which is the same in the Jiva. That same Sat in the form of the Jiva is this Sat alone. Why? How many Sats are there, we were told? Advitiyam, non-dually one Sat. So this non-dually one Sat alone is there. And what is that? It is in the form of Jiva, it is in the form of Ishvara, it is in the form of the Jagat, in the form of these 3 elements. So very, very interesting. So in the form of these 3 elements, what is there? This Sat alone is there. And Sat decides, I will enter into these elements in the form of this individual. I, which is Sat, which is the animating principle of all, will enter in the form of the Jiva. A very unique expression and an explanation here. Usually you don't find this. Instant Mahavakya already, because for the jaded, faded Jiva, this is like a shot in the arm, a breath of fresh air again. Oh goody, I am there. The jiva wants to recognize itself in every mantra of the Upanishad, in every page, every 2 minutes, where am I, where am I, where am I, are we there yet, are we there yet, like a small child looking. If anything else is discussed, the jiva gets anxious, the jiva gets impatient, the jiva gets distracted. So the Upanishad repeatedly brings home this idea of the non-separateness of this body-mind-sense complex, this consciousness that as though obtains in the body-mind-sense complex is the same as that which obtains in Sat. All the Upanishads talk about the same thing. And Sayaschayam Purushe Yascha Savaditye Sa Ekaha. It is one. What? That which obtains in the sun as the essence of the sun, that which obtains in this body as the truth of this body-mind-sense complex is one and the same. And the one who knows this, asman lokat pretya etam annamayam atmanam upasankramati, crosses over the mistake called I am dehatma buddhi, I am as good as this body, crosses over, transcends, crosses over, stops committing the mistake which says I am as good as prana. Stop committing the mistake. What is the next mistake? I am as good as the mind. Then after that stops committing the mistake, I am as good as the karta. I am as good as bhokta. Very, very beautiful. And so the mistake is where? On the level of the jiva who thinks itself to be away from everything, upset by everything, and then not able to see itself as connected to, not even connected to, nay, as one with everything. So here very cleverly the Upanishad in the next section says what? Jivena atmana anupravishya. So, keeping with all the rules of the so-called pravesha of the sentience, pravesha means the entry of the sentience into the insentient names and forms, thereby animating it. The entry of the sentience means there will be a toy, clockwork toy or a battery-operated toy, and then what? You wind it up or you put a battery. As soon as you put a battery, it will go round and round. Similarly, as soon as this battery called Sat enters any name and form, it animates it as though it lends, by lending its existence and lending its sentience, all the names and forms are animated not by Sat. Directly it says, Sat itself says here, Shruti says here, Shruti is self-thinking, Sat here, and Shruti presents Sat as saying, I will not enter these forms, enter again, quote unquote, okay? I will not enter these forms directly. What will I enter them as? As the jiva. So in other words, what? First I will enter the jiva, the body-mind-sense complex of this jiva, and then in the form of this jiva, I will enter all the other nama-rupas in the jagat. This is called praveshas shruti. Idagam sarvam asrijata tat srishtva tadeva anupravishata tad anupravishya satcha tyatcha abhavat. Very, very nice. So, what is it saying here? So, first created everything. What did it create? Basically shells called nama and rupa. A shell was created, and after the shell is created, what do you have to do? Fill it up. And that with which it is filled up is raso vaisaha. Rasaghyevayam labdhva nandi bhavati. That is what is the sara, that is the essence. The rest is what? A shell. The body is a shell, the mind is a shell. The body, mind, sense complex become interesting. Why? Because it's animated. What fills it up is interesting. And that which fills up every body, mind, sense complex is itself what? Purnam. Purnam adaha. Adaha means cause. The cause is purna, limitless. And the effect, purnam, idam. Idam jagat is what? Purna. Fully purna. And we see this in all the sweet dishes also. The sweet dishes that are made in India and even in some other parts of the world. Everybody gets the same grand idea. What is it? Let us make a shell. What kind of a shell? A pastry shell. And then fill it up with chocolate sauce. And then bake it, fry it, whatever. And when you do that, what do you get? Some kind of a chocolate-filled donut, chocolate-filled croissant, some kind of that. Who wants the bread outside? Not many people. It's very boring by itself. But along with the chocolate, it becomes very, very, very interesting. It becomes extremely interesting along with the chocolate. And even in India, all our sweet dishes are Vedantic in nature. Really. So you make, what is it that this Ganesha likes? What is that called? Modaka. Yes. Modaka means that which makes one happy, the agent of happiness. So, this Modaka you take, you roll out the dough, you put in a ball of calories, coconut, jaggery, ghee, everything, and then you cover it up. And then depending on how young and how healthy you are, you can either fry it or what else? Steam it. Yes. And then that's this wonderful thing. And then as children, I used to wonder, how did that sweet thing get inside? Because we wouldn't see the mother making it, so we would just see the finished product. How did it get inside? Because it was like magic. And when no one was looking, what would we do? We would remove the covering because it was bland. Yes. And eat the inside. Yes, nobody looked to the left, looked to the right. In those days, we were not caught because there were no CCTV cameras like everywhere here. So in those days, we were not caught. We could do this. And the funny thing is, that which is the filling is called Purna. Yes, really. All Vedantic sweet dishes. Even this thing, what is that? Puran, Poli, that is Purna only. That sweet thing is called Purna. That which fills up, the rest of the things are what? Bland. Namarupa, bland. Who wants it? Yikes. Nobody. But then what gets interesting is the Namarupa is activated by this Purna. So that's why all the things in the Jagat are sweet. Because that sweetness, that essence, raso vai saha, that rasa belongs to what? Atma, not the Namarupa. Raso vai saha, rasaghyevayam labdhva nandi bhavati. Gaining this rasa, one becomes Nandi in front of Lord Shiva, correct? Yes? No? No. Anandi bhavati. One gains ananda. Rasaghyevayam labdhva anandi bhavati. Kohi eva anyat kaf pranyat. Yada ya akashah anando nasyat. If Akasha here is Atma, if the Atma were not Ananda by itself, ko hyevanyat kaf pranyat, who would breathe? Who would even live? Everybody lives for this Ananda alone, and this Ananda belongs to Atma, not the Namarupa. So here, therefore, the Sat had an idea. The Sat said what? First, I will enter the Jiva and then enter all these things in the form of the Jiva. Jiva means what? Atma. Which Atma? The Atma that is going to have a body, mind, sense complex, because nothing has come here. This is all on the level of ikshanam, visualization. And this visualization business is so hotly contested in the Brahma Sutra that it has its own sutra. Ikshatehe na ashabdam. What does that mean? Ikshatehe, for this seeing, etc., this visualizing, seeing, how did this Sat see? So, na stands for that word which is absent, because after all this is an aphorim. Pradhanam na. Pradhanam na. Na karanam pradhanam. This pradhana, which is the Sankhya Parikalpita, Sankhya Parikalpitam Pradhanam, this pradhana which has come up from what? The Sankhya philosophy, and which is this inert matter. Out of matter, what comes? Nothing comes. Whatever comes does not matter. That's what comes out of matter. Yeah, nothing comes. How? Because it is inert. And so, this pradhana cannot become jagat karanam. It cannot become the cause of the universe. The very thought is foolish. That this pradhana, something inert, will become the cause of the universe. So the Brahma Sutra 115, the fifth sutra in the first pada says what? Ikshatehe na, pradhanam na. Because the word ikshanam, seeing, is used, we are talking of a sentient entity. Pradhanam, bye-bye. This pradhana is no longer, cannot even be entertained as the source of sentiency. Why? Itself insentient. And also, ashabdam, na shabditam, where? In anywhere in the Shastra, na shabditam, it is not discussed at all. It does not enjoy Shastra Pramana. It does not enjoy any status. So this Ikshatehe, they hotly contest. Now, so many Purva Pakshas are there in discussing this particular Chandogya Shruti, this particular portion is discussed. How can Sat, quote unquote, see? And how can it visualize? What can it do? All these things. And so here also the Bhashya is very nice. We'll just take a little look. Sa iyam prakritaha sada, so sadakhyaha tejo ap annayoni devata aikshata. Aikshata again, visualized. Ikshitavati. She saw. What did she see? Yatha purvam. Same thing she thought. Let me be many. Why she? Because Devata is feminine. She. And this way, the Upanishad keeps us on our toes. Sometimes he, sometimes it, sometimes she. In the Kathopanishad also, there are these gender bender moments, where you have to sit up, because there are all these notions. Everything we are referred to, we are used to refer to as he. Suddenly this she, oh, where did this she come from? She is he is she. And sometimes it is just it. So in the Kathopanishad also, there are these two verses, Indriyebhyah parahyarthaha arthebhyascha param manaha manasastu para buddhihi Buddheratma mahan parah mahatah param avyaktam and avyaktat purushaf parah. So you go from the gross to the subtle and then you come to Purusha. You start with your own body, mind, sense complex and go to the subtlest and then you say it is all Purusha alone, Ishvara. Purushatna param kinchit. There is nothing higher, more subtle, more pervasive than the Purusha. Therefore, what is this Purusha? Sa kashtha, sa paragatihi. So, Saha Purushaha becomes what? Sa, gender bender. And so here also, Tat Sat becomes Sa Devata. So, that which is neuter, which was referred to as Tat Sat, now becomes what? Sa Devata. This is all to just shake up the head of its notions. Because if strong notions of gender identity or any kind of identity is there deeply entrenched in the mind, the Atmajnanam will not come. Because we will want to see Sat as what? Depending on our bias. Sat has to be a man, otherwise I'll stop studying Vedanta. Sat has to be a woman. Why? Because I'm a feminist and everything has to be she. If Sat is not she, I'll stop studying Vedanta. These kinds of notions are there. So therefore the Upanishad does a switcheroo every now and then. And here, always, everywhere it is she, throughout this Upanishad. Imaha, Tisro, Devataha. All these, Imaha, feminine, these three goddesses. So, these three goddesses, now Sat herself has become a Devata, a goddess. So, she, who is she now? Sat. Sat is she. Why? Because she has acquired a personhood. She has acquired a personhood. Why? Because the word ikshanam is used. If you are not a person, how can you visualize? How can you see? So there is a sentient, conscious being here that is referred to as she, Devata, Sat. And this sentient, conscious being, meaning this Maya Shakti endowed Sat, which is what? Ishvara. So the Maya Shakti is such that the Maya does not delude Ishvara. Maya makes Ishvara a powerful magician, like we saw in the last class, who does not succumb to his own magic and is not constantly surprised in the magic show. He plays it very, very cool. So, Ishvara is like that, and Maya Shakti makes Ishvara powerful, all power, all might, omniscient. And that same Maya Shakti associated with Malina Sattva, in conjunction with Malina Sattva. Malina Sattva means certain impurities. What is the impurities? Ajnanam. Associated with all knowledge, that Maya is Ishvara, and associated with ignorance, what is this Maya? Jiva. So the same Maya, like the moon has two sides, similarly Maya also has two sides. And the side that is facing Ishvara is all knowledge, all power, all pervasive. And then the side that is facing the Jiva is the one who is struggling to spell the word omniscient. Always I before E except after C. Wait, what was that? How to do this? So the gap becomes too much. And so therefore, the Maya Shakti, what does it do? This Shakti creates an as though covering, Avarana Shakti. Covers one, so to speak, covers the Atma. Covers the Atma. How can the Atma, which uncovers everything, be covered? Just like the sun, in the morning, what did we say? We can't see the sun. Even now, we can't, sometimes it is peaking today. So right now the sun is not there. And then what do we say? The sun is covered by the clouds. Alas, cloudy day. Can't see the sun. Is that true? No. Ghanachanna drishtihi ghanachannamarkam manyate atimudha. Hastamalakiyam says this. Hastamalakya is the work of Hastamalaka, direct disciple of who? Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. Adi Shankara's direct disciple is called Hastamalaka because he gained the knowledge as though it was like a berry, that ripe berry, amla berry. What is that called in English? Gooseberry. Yeah, gooseberry. Apparently, when it's ripe, you touch it and it drops into your palm. So, with that much ease and without effort, this person gained the knowledge, and so therefore what? So therefore, he was called Hastamalaka. And so this Hastamalaka composed this composition, so the Hastamalakiyam, where he says, Ghanachanna drishtihi. So the one whose eyes are vitiated by ignorance, whose vision is vitiated by ignorance, manyate. Manyate considers what? Ghanachannam arkam. Considers the sun to be covered by the clouds. And who is this person? Atimudha, terribly deluded. So you see, this is how. So the sun can never be covered, and in fact it's because of the sun we see the clouds. Let us remember that. Because of the sun we see the clouds. Because of the sun we see the clouds, and because of the sun we can say that right now I cannot see the sun. Even though when I say right now I cannot see the sun, I am seeing the sun being covered by the clouds. Because of the presence of the light of the sun, we see that covering. So similarly, the Atma can neither be eclipsed nor be covered, but we use these metaphors because we don't know what else to say. Atma is that which reveals every covering, including ignorance. Atma reveals ignorance. That is why we come to retreats. That is why we say, I have self-ignorance. We own up the self-ignorance and you sign up for the retreat. This is why, because once I own up the self-ignorance, I immediately want to disown it, but it won't go. It won't go. And then it catches on like a crab, it's hanging on. And so you keep going like this, like this. I want to get rid of this ignorance because the jiva cannot stand ignorance. And so here also, it's not that the jiva is covered by Maya Shakti or covered by ignorance. What do we have to say? As though in association with ignorance, there is avarana. There is the obfuscation or the veiling of one's own power from oneself. The hiding of the glory of myself as Sat is not there because I have identified with ignorance. Identified with ignorance, there is this feeling of smallness and there is this feeling of pain, sorrow, etc. And therefore, this avarana has to go. When the avarana goes, all that is there is Ishvara. And I am non-separate from Ishvara. This is where the Tat Tvam Asi has to lead. Everybody is looking kind of shell-shocked. I think it's a little warm in here. We'll take a little stretch break. Just jump up and down, go drink water, do something. Yeah. 1 minute, okay? Yeah. Maybe we should keep that door open. Because of the heat, either everybody is fainting or falling asleep, I can't tell which. In deep samadhi, nirvikalpa. Don't be an NRI, non-returning Indian. Come back. Yeah. Come back, okay? So this devata, sa iyam prakrita sadakhya tejo ap anna yonihi, the source of all these elements, that sat, aikshata, ikshatavati. And what did she say? Bahubhavanam prayojanam na adhyapi nivrittam iti ata iksham punah punaha kritavati. So since the bahubhavanam, since the manifoldness has not yet been accomplished, so the ikshanam, the seeing here, is what? Is visualization. What is the visualization? Previous cycles of creation. The previous cycle of creation is visualized, and then this Sadakhya Devata, this Devata called Sat, is keeping on visualizing. How did she visualize? Katham. Hanta. Hanta means an expression of excitement. Yippee. Okay? Yippee. Hanta. Idanim. Now, aham. Now, I. Imaha. Yathokta. Devataha. Tejadhyaha. Tisro Devataha. As was said earlier, those deities, those devatas, I will enter. This is called Pravesha Shruti. This whole entry business to show that every name and form in the universe is not without the presence of what? Sat. Purna. Everything is Sat. Sat means Sat Chit Ananda. You cannot separate Sat from Chit and Ananda, but here Sat alone is emphasized. So everything is what? Sat alone is everything. Everything is Sat. And then to understand this, to understand this alone, there is this Pravesha Shruti, and so Devata anena jivena, jivena means in the form of the jiva. What is that? Swabuddhistham purva srishti anubhuta pranadharanam atmanam eva. So through this individual self, what is this individual self? That individual self means this Atma alone. And what is this Atma? This Atma which is all knowledge. And right now, what is this all knowledge? The knowledge of the previous cycle of creation. Visualize that and said to itself, hey, not bad. Pat, pat, shabash. Why? Because there was nothing wrong. All the people who were supposed to marry all the other people got married. And then they had whatever experiences of karma they needed to have. After that, they separated. And then again they got same experiences, whichever they needed to have. These people met somebody else. Those people met somebody else. In this way, the whole Jagat was perfect, because this is exactly what needed to happen according to the karma of the individuals. So why reinvent the wheel? The Sad Akhya Devata, this Devata called Sat, she thought to herself, why reinvent the wheel? And so buddhistham atmana, buddhisthena atmana. So this Atma, which is in the form of the buddhi, which is in the form of the I, aham. So this Sat said, I will enter as I into all the beings in the universe. Isn't that beautiful? So every being is what? I alone. Everything in the universe is aham. I. You mean even lobster? Yes, I. And then, but when I see lobster, I can't say I. I can only say yo. That's all I can say. I can't say I. That's where I may want to say yo, but I stop at I. This is how to practice. Cockroach, all these things. And that thing that goes on the wall. Lizard, gecko. Yeah. In India, some people will not come to the ashram unless other people go into their rooms and then check it for them and take a broom and escort anything that looks like a lizard out. Then they will go in. Okay? But then we don't have problems, because they will be roommates with somebody who is afraid of cockroaches. And so the roommate who is afraid of lizard will be very helpful when the cockroach comes, and the roommate who is afraid of cockroaches is very helpful when the gecko comes. So in this way, Bhagavan takes care. No problem at all. So like this, everything is I, because it is very clearly said. This Sat said to itself, Yipi. Yipi means what in Sanskrit? Hanta. But don't write that down, because it because sometimes it also means alas. Same word. You have to look at it contextually. Here Sat is excited because it is doing anupravesha into every name and form. It is animating every name and form. So the Hanta should be translated as what? Yippee. And in other places, the Hanta is what? Alas. So you have to look at it contextually. So what did he say? Yippee. Hanta. And what will I do? I will, as it were, enter every name and form. Vyakaravani. I will enter every name and form. How will I enter? As myself? No. As you. Jivena Atmana. It will not enter as itself. What will it enter as? I. In the form of I. So therefore, what is animating the cockroach, the lobster, and all these things which we don't like to look at too much and which we want them far away from me is what? I. It's all I alone. The whole jagat of names and forms is populated by what? I. That's all it is. So this Devata called Sat, she thought, what did she think? I will be many and I will enter as the I. And what is this I? The same I which the Jiva refers to himself or herself. That I. This Buddhistham Atma. This Buddhistha Atma. This Atma that is there in the form of that which obtains in the buddhi. What obtains in the buddhi? I. Aham aham iti sakshat sakshi rupena bhasate. This is the I. So this Sat thought got an idea, I will enter all right, but not as myself, not as Sat. That Sat is what? I. The Sat first enters as I, and then as I populates the entire universe of names and forms. Further, so this is very nice. And so then, that is what the Shruti says. By the Jivena Atmana iti. And then it says this individual self, the Jiva, must not be thought of as this pranadhara kartra atmana iti vachanat. So Adi Shankara obviously knows his grammar, because the root verb jiv is what? Described as pranadharane, that which holds prana. Jiva is a vessel for holding prana. So this jiva that holds prana, don't think it is separate from Sat. Don't think it is separate from Atma. Don't think it is separate from Brahman. Why is it not separate from Brahman? Because there is no other Svatmana avyatirekena chaitanya swarupataya vishishtena iti taddarshayati. Because this Atma obtaining in this body-mind-sense complex is not separate from Sat, Chaitanyam. It is not separate. It's one and the same. Why is it one and the same? Because it is Chaitanya Swarupat. Because it is in the form of consciousness. So the consciousness that obtains in the body-mind-sense complex as I is the same as that which is Sat. And therefore, this whole story that is created here, that Sat alone is identifying as this, is just for the sake of understanding, I am this Sat. I am non-separate from Sat on this side, and on the other side what? I am not separate from Jagat. I am not separate from Sat, I am not separate from Jagat. I am that Sat which animates the Jagat. All these names and forms are myself alone, and so therefore, this Anupravesha Shruti says, Anupravishya Tejaha Ap Annabhuta Matra Samsargena Labdha Vishesha Vijnana Sati Namacha Rupam Cha Namarupe Vyakaravani Vispashtam Akaravani Asau iti Vyakuryam ityartha. So therefore what? So therefore this Sat, having entered all these names and forms, such as what? Tejaha, up. Tejaha means what? Fire. Up, water. And then what is the other one? Annam, Prithvi. Having entered all these, what did it do? It diversified, but it entered them and then diversified, and it was called fire in one instance, it was called waters in another instance, and from the third angle it was called what? Earth. Based upon the characteristics of the names and the forms, it was called all these things. But what was it really? Sat. So this Vyakaranam, this Vyakaranam here doesn't mean grammar, okay? Yeah. This Vyakaranam, this Vispashtena Akaranam, the manifoldness is as though mithya, filling up of names and forms. Mithya names, mithya forms, and the as though entry, because really this all-pervasive Sat cannot enter anything. Like even space cannot enter a room. So space is what? Already there. And so similarly, Sat is what? The all-pervasive Sat is already there. It cannot and need not enter anything. This fact has to enter our head. Okay? That's all. That's the only entry that needs to happen. This fact that the Sat cannot enter anything has to enter our heads. And so the entry is for whom? Is for the one who feels disconnected from everything. I am alone. Bhagavan doesn't love me. And all these ideas, I'm far away from Bhagavan. Ishvara is angry with me. Nobody loves me. This is the condition of who? The one who classifies oneself as very, very sorry, I am a samsari. So for this person, this whole talk in all the Upanishad and with a special name, what is the special name? Anupravesha Shruti. The so-called Anupravesha Shruti is specially made for this person who feels disconnected, distracted, alienated, dissociated from the Jagat, from Ishvara, from oneself, from, of course, from other jivas. This is a whole construct. This narrative is an antidote to that dissociation to show clearly. Because this can be shown even without this anupravesha, going through all this thing. But the person is mandu. The person is not going to listen. The person has already come to various conclusions about how alone and how disconnected from everybody and everything they are. This is a lived experience. The lived experience is that of just somehow hanging out by oneself, unsupported, unloved, and somehow thrown out of everything, not part of any loop or network, and therefore feeling somehow alienated, including up to and from Bhagavan. Alienated from one's own body, mind, sense complex, alienated from other jivas, alienated from the Jagat, alienated from Ishvara. And so for such a person, experiencing this level of alienation, it's not enough to say what? You are the whole. There's already a jaded, faded jiva. What are they going to say? Yeah, right. Yeah. Next. That's what they will say. And such people will say, I have read the Kathopanishad, I have studied the Kathopanishad. I have studied the Kenopanishad, nothing happened. I have studied the Mundakopanishad, nothing happened. That's because it must not be read. Shravanam has to take place, and for Shravanam to be successful, there has to be devotion and receptivity. That is the main qualification, called Shraddha. If Shraddha is not there, it will not give fruit. It will not bear fruit. And so, for the person with Shraddha, we have some kind of a narrative here called Anupravesha Shruti, continuing with the so-called creation cosmology of the Upanishad, where this Chaitanya Tattva, here called Sat, this conscious entity, for which Karanatvam Praptam, for which has been invested with causality, upon which is totally free of being cause, being effect, but here it has been deliberately loaded with causality, superimposed causality, so that you can see that everything has come from this Sat alone. As though come from this Sat, everything is as though sustained by this Sat, starting with this body-mind sense complex. And so the individual jiva is included in this Anupravesha Shruti in a very conscious way here, much more, conscious and deliberate than in the Taittiriya Upanishad. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, it is always Saha Akamayata, Saha Asrijata. So, and then Srishtva Tadeva Anupravishat, Saha Anupravishat. And here, the jiva is seen as what? The Sat alone that creates everything. Because this Sadakhya Devata, what does this Devata do? She takes the jiva and says, I will enter this whole universe in the form of this Atma. What is this Atma? The one that obtains in the buddhi of the jiva. I'll enter everything as I, in the form of this self-conscious being. And so all this whole step-by-step rigmarole is for who? For the one that is alienated and refuses to be consoled. And so for that person, this whole array, this whole story. And then, what else is said here? So then it will have different names, different forms, it is said. And then a few objections are raised. We don't worry, we will not look at that. And then we will see the next one later. Next one we will see, because it talks about what we already have seen briefly, Trivrit Karanam. We will see that next time. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.